Okay, so I have removed my drapes from the dress form. I have removed all the pins from the drapes, and I have taken them over to the iron and given them a very light press. Now I'm going to true the shapes of the drapes. So the draping the fabric on the dress form gives us a pretty good idea of what the shape should be, but obviously writing on the dress form isn't going to give us the smoothest, most mechanical lines. So we're going to pull it down, we're going to check the shapes and make sure that they're right, and then we're going to test it again on the form. And we're also going to use our measurement chart and check those measurements and make sure everything is in good shape. So for this process, I'll need some rulers. One is enough. This big 2x18 one is enough. You'll also need a nice solid pencil that won't break, the lead won't break. I like a really thin lead though, so that my lines aren't too big and squishy. You'll need some curves, and what curves you need will depend on how curvy your form is. So I have my French curves, and I have my hip curve, and I have my very form curve. And I don't know which ones I'm going to need yet. Also, something to remember is that there is, like, it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense that any curve in some other place in time is going to exactly meet all the curves that are on this pattern that you're trying to make. I mean, it could be from a human that did the curves were made, right? So it just doesn't make sense that these curves would magically somehow exactly mimic a person's body. So rather what we do with these curves is we kind of shift the curves around on our shape to blend the shape. There we go. I had to adjust my lighting because I was getting some weird shadows. So anyway, what we're going to do first, and usually on it like this, because it's just easier for me to work with when it's shifted on its side like this. So you shift your pattern or your piece in the direction that's easiest for you. So one of the things I need to do is I need to make sure that this is my back, and I need to make sure that my center back waist is square, like at a perfect 90-degree angle to the center back seam. If this is slanted, either up or down, when I put the whole back together at the center back, it's going to look pointy or V-shaped instead of looking like a smooth curve. So one of the first things I'm going to do is square off my back. And it varies, but often you can get a straight line all the way to the first dart leg. Mine does not look like it's going to be straight all the way to the first dart leg. So I'll have to pick up and create a curve from there, just like blend a curve in. So another thing that we need to do is make sure that our darts are trued. So first of all, I'm going to measure from the center back to the first dart leg and see if that matches the dart placement measurement on my measurement chart that I took. So let me go over to my measurement chart and scroll to dart placement. There it is. So dart placement. So I want to make sure, so you check your chart and make sure that your dart placement measurement matches, or your muslin matches your dart placement measurement. So mine should be 3. So it looks, the fold looks like it's a little bit shy, like maybe a 1/16 of an inch shy. like exactly a 1/16 of an inch shy. So I'm gonna do a little bit above the waist too, just to give myself a better target to hit. And just for funsies, I'm going to check with another ruler. And I'm getting the same reading. Great. So this is my first dart leg. My dart is 1 inch. So I'm going to measure over 1 inch and make a mark. And then my darts should be 1 1/4 inch apart. So I'm going to measure over 1 1/4 inch and make a mark. And then this dart should be 1 inch. So I'm going to measure over. So the discrepancies are the same in every spot, which means something was up with my dart placement, but from the wrong dart placement, my dart spacing, and my second dart were all the right measurement. So at least that's good news. So now what I need to do is true the darts. So I know where the top of the dart is, where the take-up is, but I need to figure out where the vanishing point is going to be. Now there's lots of schools of thought on this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make my darts parallel, like the 2 dart points at the bottom, I'm going to make them parallel. That way, if I'm using some directional pattern fabric, I think it'll look nicer, like if I'm using a check or a plaid or something. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure from the center back to my first dart leg, or sorry, to the center of my dart. So I guess I better find the center of my dart first, right? So my darts are 1 inch wide. So the center is 1/2 inch. And just confirm. Great. And then I'm going to go to this dart too, and I'm going to find the center. And just double check. Great. Then I'm going to measure from the center back to the center of the first dart. And whatever that measurement is, I'm going to make sure it's the same at the bottom of the dart. So my dart length on this first dart should be 5.5. So I'm going to find my waist level. I'm going to measure down 5.5 and make a mark. Then I'm going to measure over from my center back to the middle of my first dart. So not the first dart leg, but the middle of the first dart. So my dart placement is 3 plus the 1/2 inch to get to the middle of that dart is 3.5 for me. Might be different for you. So I'm going to come down here to the bottom of the dart, and I'm going to measure over 3.5, and I'm going to make a mark there. This is going to be where my dart will be centered and where it will finish. And then I can go ahead and draw the center of that dart. And then I can draw from the dart leg to that dart vanishing point on each side of the dart. So you may see that your dart is changing a little bit from how you draped it. That's okay. We're going to double check it. You're going to see a couple other things change as well. So now I'm going to do the same thing over here. From my waist, actually no, I'm not going to do that. Whatever this distance is from here to here, from my HBL to the bottom of my dart, I'm going to make it the same for this one. So my 2 darts aren't going to be exactly the same length. So that's going to be the bottom of this dart, which is right where my one when I was draping, right where that one ended. So that's interesting news, interesting information. Now I'm going to measure from my center back to the center of my second dart, which looks like it is, for me, it's going to be 5 3/4. It will be different for you. I'm going to come down here and measure from the center back 5 3/4. I have to double check that measurement. 5 3/4. 5 3/4. And make a mark. So see how far over this dart is going to shift? Make sure that that is the right distance. Yes. And then I'm going to draw through the center of my dart. So this is where it looked like it was supposed to be on the form, but apparently that was off grain, and so now I am correcting it. Now when you're making these corrections, it might be easier for you to do this in different colors. It is best to use pencil or ballpoint pen because a felt tip will bleed and you will get a larger line and it won't be as sharp. So over here, my hip is very wiggly. And when I look at the dress form, it doesn't look wiggly at all. So what this probably means is I didn't do a very good job of pushing some of that ease out. And so not all the ease that is required ended up on the correct side of the hip. No worries, I'm going to correct it now. So I have my waist corner and I have my HBL side seam corner. I need this to look very smooth. So curved up here in the hip, and then it's going to hit this line and it's going to be straight for just a little bit above the HBL so that the curve looks smooth and I don't have like a point or a corner right here at the HBL. So I'm going to try out some of my curves and see what I like. So I could go like this. Might be too far over. Let's see if I turn it upside down, if I like that shape. And then I kind of shift it. So now I'm hitting a lot of the lines that I had, a lot of the little dots that I had drawn before, which is good news. So let's see how that looks. That looks pretty good. Yeah, see, so I think I sucked some of the ease in there, but now I've corrected it. So next what I want to do is I'm just going to check my side hip depth and my center front hip depth and make sure those are good. Should have done that before I drew my center back line, but you know. So we're doing it now, and if it's wrong, I'll need to just use a different color, and that's fine. So hip depth. So let's see, I'm in the back. That's supposed to be 7 3/4. So it looks pretty good. Maybe just drop it like a 1/16 of an inch. Let's see, is that true or no? It's right on. Okay, great. And then side hip depth is 7 15/16. So center, just to show you, center was 7 3/4, and then side is 7 15/16. So I'm going to check that. So I'm putting 7 15/16 on my HBL and measuring up. And it looks like this wants to be a little shorter. So I'll go ahead and make that mark. And then I'll double check. Okay. Oof, that's terrible. Get that glare out of your face. Okay. So, this is very interesting, but we'll have a chance to test it. But this looks like it's supposed to be here instead of here. I'm going to check it one more time because sometimes, you know. Yes, that looks like where it is supposed to be. All right. So now I have my waist corner and I have my darts and I have my center back. So now I'm going to go ahead and pin my darts shut again so that I can true my waist. So I'm just going to fold that dart leg that's closest to front, and I'm just really pinching it. And if your muslin is still holding the memory of the dart that you draped and you need to make a change, you can of course just really lightly give it another press. Now I gave mine the press before I started this process. But sometimes, even though you do that, it still just needs a little bit more coaxing. So because this vanishing point is pretty much nothing, I had to put that pin horizontally, or parallel to the dart, let's say it that way. But over here, I'm going to put my pins perpendicular. And at the bottom of the dart, I really want to make sure it disappears into nothing. I don't want like a little pucker or a pleat there. And then I'm going to bring my dart legs to touch each other. So I don't want them going past each other or before each other. I want them right on each other. And then I'm going to put one pin right below where I think the waistline should be. I might have to move it. And then I'm going to do the same thing to this dart. So I'm going to go ahead and crease right on my dart leg. And then I put my finger on the vanishing point, or my fingernail, so that I don't fold my dart past where it's supposed to vanish. And then I'll pin that dart shut. I'll turn that one the other way. I was thinking, like while I was pinning this, I was looking over at my audio levels to see if the volume indicators were moving. Because here in my studio, I can hear my cat snoring, and I was wondering if it was registering. So I wasn't paying attention to my pinning because I was distracted by cat snoring. Okay, so now I pin shut. This one might need to move over just a little bit. Make sure I'm right on. There we go. That looks better. So now I want to make a smooth curve going from my center back waist and across my darts, and those T's that I drew when I was draping might not line up anymore. They definitely don't because I moved my legs a little bit. And then over here, this looks like where my side waist should be, which kind of makes sense because the shape of my hip changed a little bit, so it makes sense that my corner there would change. So usually when I draw the waist, I have the flattest part of my curve towards the center, and then the curviest part of my curve out towards the waist. So let's see if this variform curve will get me close to where I want to be. I feel like it's a little too dippy, but let me shift it. So it looks like that might be okay, but I'm going to try a couple other curves and see if I like any of them better before I commit. I think I might like that, possibly. And then I'm going to try my French curve. One of the things I love about the French curve, if it's the right curve, like the right shape, which this doesn't look like it is, I really like that it's see-through. So I think my regular hip curve was my favorite. And then I just have to shift it until I get a good measurement or a good shape. Okay, I think I'm going to try this. And then I push my pencil away because if I pull it towards the darts, I have to very carefully get over the darts because it'll want to get caught in the fold of my darts. So that looks like my new waist shape. We'll try that on the form in a minute. Now we're going to do exactly the same thing to the front skirt. So I'm going to turn this one this way because it's easier for me to work with. I'm going to do what I should have done first with the back, which is check my front hip depth, which I wrote right there is 7 3/4. So 7 3/4, right on. And my side hip depth was 8 15/16, or 7 15/16. Let's just see what that looks like. It looks a little short here too. But let's draw the hip curve before we see. So I'm going to square out my front. Let's see, can I square all the way to the first dart? Nope. So it looks like I can square to about there. And then I'll check my dart placement, which is 3. And then my dart is 5/8 of an inch. And my dart space is 1 1/4. And then my dart is 5/8 of an inch. So that dart looked like it was right on. I'm going to make these a little longer, just so I have a easier target to hit. And then I'm going to find the middle of each of these darts. So the half of 5/8 is 5/16. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And over here, 4, And then I'll measure down. So the dart length can either be 3 or 3.5, depending on how much of an abdomen yours has. I'm going to try 3.5, and then when I test this drape, I'll decide if I want it 3.5 or 3. And then I'm going to measure to the middle of the dart. So that is very annoying. 3 5/16. 3 5/16. And then I'll do the same over here. 5 1/4. 5 1/4. So that's the middle. I don't know what the length is yet. So I measured down 3.5 here. So the distance up from the HBL on this is 4 3/16. So I'll measure up here 4 3/16. So this will be the bottom of this dart. And now I will draw through the middle of the dart. And then I will draw the dart legs. And then, because I used this, here, let me go find my front for a second. So this is what I did on my front. So I'm going to find that same spot. So it looks like my HBL was here and my waist was here. So I'm going to start at the HBL and use the same spot on the other side of this same hip curve. And there's a pencil mark there, so it looks like I've used that mark before. So that's a good sign. It worked for me before. Let me mark this top one too. So this is where my new waist should be. Oh, maybe not. Maybe it's up here. So there's that. Now I'm going to fold my dart leg that's closest to center. And then put my finger on the vanishing point so that I don't fold past it. Use a pin that's parallel to the dart. To pin the bottom. And then pin perpendicular to the dart. I'm not sure this one's quite right. Let me try that again. I feel like I have to go over there and put the mic near that cat so that you can hear it. But if I go over there, she'll probably stop. Okay, I'm gonna go over there. Yeah, they both woke up. Sorry, you don't get to hear the cat snore. I know you're severely disappointed. Oh, there she goes again. I'll just have to invite you over. All right. Now we're going to true that waistline. The front and the back are not the same at all. The curve that you use for the front and the back may be different. But I'm just going to start off trying the one that I used on the back. Looks like it's a little deeper right here in the front. So let me try this one. That looks like it'll work. Oops. Okay, so now I have this guy trued. I'm just going to check my side hip depth again. Looks good. Oh, you know what I didn't check before? Which is pretty important. On both my back and my front, I need to check. Where's my cursor? I need to check my waist. So, waist arc. So, hopefully this is good, so I don't have to change anything. So, my front should be 6 7/8. That's what I have on the table right now. So, let's come back. Cross your fingers, everybody. So 6 7/8, and then I should have 1/4 of an inch ease. So that should be 7 1/8. Yay! So my front waist is right. So it's not your waist arc measurement, it's your waist arc plus 1/4 of an inch. The back was 6 3/8 plus 1/4 should be 6 5/8. See what we got here. Holy guacamole. That is right. It is 6 5/8. So if this wasn't right, this corner right here would have to move, either like out or in, depending on. So my waist arc in the back was 6 3/8. So I need 6 3/8 plus a quarter. So 6 3/8 plus a quarter is 6 5/8. So let's say this was 6 3/8 instead of 6 5/8. Then I would have to tilt this hip line out. So this curve that I drew, I'd have to tip it out this way to make sure that my waist was 6 5/8. Conversely, if this was like 7 inches or something, I would have to redraw this hip curve and tip it in so that my waist measurement was correct. So once we have all that, then our patterns are trued and we're ready for the next step.